909 in Studio is brought to you by 90.9 The Bridge in Kansas City. To find out how you can become a sustaining member or to donate, go to bridge909.org. Our guest today, Jade Bird, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is super cool.
We really appreciate you coming in. You know, I know you're working on the first full length. It's been a little bit over a year since you put out an EP, Something American.
Yeah.
And, you know, just by the sound of your voice, it's you're not American.
No, I know. I'm very British. Yeah.
But you do have some American dialects.
Oh, you are so early on. Yeah, sometimes I can talk a little like that. I don't know if it's any good or nothing. But
Oh, love that. It must be fun to tour across America.
yeah, we're like having the best time. We played Kansas last night, Salt Lake City before, and I mean they've been quite packed. Like I was not expecting it, so we're just having the best time.
Yeah, well, the music that you've been putting out has been really great. By the way, before we go too far, is it just too early to wish you a happy birthday? It's 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, I know. October the 1st. I know. I 20. Then I can actually drink in America.
Yeah.
21.
So that's just an American thing. That's not a.
I've been able to drink in Canada and the UK for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can
Well,
drink in America.
try and tough out those next 2 weeks for us.
As hard as it will be.
Yeah. You know, I think that so many of the artists that come through, you know, your musical taste is at least informed by your early years. And, you know, like when you were 3, your grandmother was sharing Cotton Eye Joe while your parents were battling it with EDM. So, you know, I think that explains a lot about where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something American EP that came out last year. When I started writing when I was 12, and I think I was really influenced by a lot of Americana music, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Neil Young, Bob Dylan. It was like you said, a bit of a rebellion for me to find that music. I was like, ooh, guitar. You know, I heard this before. Not quite such a but then recently I've been getting into, you know, Alanis Morissette and a lot of 90s kind of guitar music. So it's a nice cross between that. But yeah.
You know, it's so funny, and I hope I'm not bringing anything up, and you can always wave me off. But, you know, you strike me as being so fun-loving and so free-spirited. Your parents were divorced when you were a teenager. Both sets of grandparents were divorced.
It's true.
And we know that how hard that is on kids.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you had your struggles. I mean, you've even referenced having sad kid days, right? But, you know, really on the face of it, your reaction to all of that seems to have been, that'd be a good song.
I mean, it's true. Like, I use humor. It's a British thing as well, I think, the majority of it. But I always use humor to kind of combat quite a serious situation. But for some reason, I've always been fascinated. Well, I guess that's the reason. I've always been fascinated with affairs and marriage breakdowns and just the general overarching betrayal of trust. I feel like it's the kind of substance that makes good songwriting. And when you have I think any good songwriter has to have an empathy to be able to do that. And I feel, you know, you can feel what other people are going through. And because then people were so close to me, it allowed me to kind of create authentic songs in that manner, you know?
Your grandmother thought one of your more recent songs was just about her.
I know. She was like, how do you write that stuff? Like, I've never been, you know, it's called Furious, the acoustic song, and I've never been in that situation, but I've got a wild imagination, I guess.
Well, you know, songwriting is therapy or whatever it is.
It's
the
true.
songs are just fabulous.
Thank you.
We would love to hear a song if we could.
Yeah, this one's called Lottery. I was 19 and you were 23, and we stayed in number 4 Ferdinand Street. We spent 5 talking about our lives, but we'd told like that about 1,000 times, and I'm bored of all that. You used to tell me that love is a lottery, yeah. You got your numbers and you're betting on me. You used to say that love is a game, but you got your numbers and you play it anyway. I think I better go there. I've been with you, Oscar. Old as he and I, 26 now, but he's
Jade Bird live in our studios here at the Bridge. That's just a great song.
Thank you so much.
I'm imagining that it, triggers a few sing-alongs here and there.
And honestly, like, people have actually been singing along. As you can tell, I'm a bit croaky due to so many shows where people have been singing with us. But I mean, for me, it's never really happened like that. I've never had people sing along before now, so it's kind of special every time, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into some of those early shows a little bit later on in the interview. I want to go back to when you very first got started with music, 7 or 8, Russian piano teacher.
Yeah.
And I've never really heard you say it, but just sort of the look on your face when you're talking about it, I kind of get the impression maybe she was just mean.
She actually wasn't. I learned quite. It was tough love. Like, I mean, if I didn't practice, I'd certainly know about it. But I learned a lot of discipline from her, I think, and not in a mean perspective. Just in, she was kind of like a parent that you didn't want to disappoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she'd worked so hard to get to where she was before. So yeah, I relate to that in a way.
Yeah. So you mentioned getting the guitar, and that sort of opened you up around 12 or 13.
Yeah.
But it didn't just open you up in terms of your influences and the music that you discovered through that, but also it started you songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. I never been able to write on the piano before a couple of years ago. And to say how long I've been playing the piano for, that's kind of crazy. It always just felt so cliche to me. Whereas the guitar, you know, like I said to you before, it was the rebellion. It was like, you know, it just had so many prospects of, like, lyrical prospects. It's quite freeing, whereas piano was always quite a constructed instrument for me.
You know, just the list of inspirations that I've heard you mention, it's like a crazy list, right? It's
Yeah.
Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, Patti Smith, Civil Wars, Chris Stapleton, Alanis Morissette, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash, Son House, and it just goes on
And it goes
from there.
on, yeah.
Yeah. You just sort of listen to things all over the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when you, and especially old music, if you listen to it, I feel like you can always get something new out of it that a band hasn't before. The music that I love, you know, that's more recent, have listened to the time before it to try and pinch stuff. Does that make sense?
Sure.
You kind of become a product of your own influences in a way, but it's important to kind of get something new. And by listening to such a range, that's what I try and do. So I don't just sound, you know, like a Neil Young wannabe or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to you, I know, to sound like yourself.
Absolutely.
So when you started writing songs, was it like an everyday thing? Because I know eventually it became that.
Yeah, I mean, initially I was always writing as a kid. I wrote poetry and stories, and, you know, I was just a literary fan, I guess. I was always reading. But then, you know, like when I was 12, I pretty much did a song a day. I've always had a bit of a work ethic, and, you know, for me it was, like I said, a bit of a therapy just to do it every day. I'd fill up a notebook and I'd be quite proud of it at the end. I'd be like, oh, here's, you know, 100 rubbish songs. But yeah, I've done that pretty much ever since.
You know, the interview that I was reading, it was probably a little old, but said that you've already written over 600 songs.
Yeah, about that 500, 600, I'm sure, if not more. I've got all the notebooks in my house. They're kind of stacked up. But I'm quite flippant with it. I never stick on a song too long. If it doesn't kind of gel, and I workshop them all with this band here, and we kind of see if it's one that we want to keep. We're testing out 6 new songs live right now on this tour that will be going on the album, so...
You know, I know that you've been writing, and then all of a sudden it's like off to the studio real quickly. And
Yeah.
I think in Kansas City we got a little caught up in that cycle. You were going to open up for First Aid Kit here.
Yeah.
And then you got yanked out to do some recording.
I know. Recording's important. I think it's you got to get the balance, because I don't want to leave people with all this momentum and then no record. And I'm determined, you know, I'm writing all of it 100% by myself. So with that, you know, you've got to put in a bit of work, and, you know, you do have to cancel things, unfortunately.
So you go into the studio and you knock out like 13, 14, 15 songs a day.
Yeah, I mean, I do that every 3 months, 3 or 4 months. Everything I've written up to that point, I'll whittle down into about 15 songs, track them all acoustically. I get people's opinions that I really kind of value, you know, my managements, my friends, and then I bring them to these guys, and we just workshop them, and we just, you know, make them into the songs that they are now.
All right. Jade Bird is in our studio. We'd love to hear another song if we could.
All right, this one's a bit of a slower one. It's called Something American. We knew each other when we were very young. High school sweethearts or something American. Now we've become old, I only see photos. She's what I thought, something American. Something American. But you don't call me now, and I don't think too much about you. But when she's not around, I can feel you lonely. Oh, I can feel you lonely somehow. I'm not nice like her, won't wear white like her, don't live life with the pages mapped out. No, I'm not perfect, but then no one is. We're all reaching for something American. You don't call me now, and I don't think too much about you. But when she's not around, I can feel you lonely. I can feel you all night. In my dreams I find the stars align, then they all collide, and it's you and I. Hold back in time, it feels so right. But you don't call me now, and I don't think too much about you. But when she's not around, I can feel you lonely, lonely. Oh, wow. You don't call me now, and I don't think too much about you. But when she's not around, I can feel you lonely. Oh, I can feel you lonely somehow. We knew each other when we were very young. High school sweethearts or something American.
Title track from Jade Bird's original EP, live in the Bridge Studios this afternoon. I really want to just thank you for coming in. You talked about after the first song being a little croaky.
Yeah.
I think that plays into your songs actually pretty well.
Lucky
It's
me,
like,
I know, it's true.
there's something about that raw emotion that you get with a voice that's just a little bit raspy or whatever. But this is your day off, and you came in to play for us and sing
no problem
for
at
us.
all. Thank you for having
It's just lovely of you to do that extra work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You were you're born in a small town, bit of an army brat, moved around quite a bit, but you and your mom settled in London, and that opened up the opportunity for you to start gigging.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've been gigging since I was about 14, so a little bit before we moved, because when we moved from Germany, when my parents split, I moved in with my grandma and my mum, and they used to drive me to all these tiny little competitions, and they were always a bit humiliating, because they were like, you're too sad, the other person goes through, and I was, I'm not good enough. So after all that kind of nonsense for 2 years, I moved to London, and I found this little blues bar. I remember it because it was like my home, the first time I'd felt musically at home. And there was this Brazilian owner, Rafa, who kind of became a father figure to me in a way. And I just played there every weekend, every week, every open mic, until I got better and could kind of stand up with these big bluesy men, I guess.
It's so funny. I've heard your music referred to as country. I just, like, I don't hear that.
Yeah.
And I don't hear the blues and I don't hear rock. I don't hear any genre. I just hear songs, right?
That's great though. That's what I want. I don't consider. I think it's kind of genre defying in a way when when
Right.
you've got such a combination of sounds.
Was it hard to be you in a blues club?
I think initially, I mean, I've grown quite a lot over this past couple of years, massive amount. And when I first came in, I remember Raf being like, what's this pop nonsense you're going to play in my bar? So I've really changed since then. But, it's always hard to be yourself in a way, but I'm a confident little lass. So it's probably easier for me than most people.
The somewhere along the way, you managed to get into the Brit School for Performing Arts,
Yes.
which is got quite a reputation, and I think that you enjoyed that and it served you well, but you also skipped out a lot.
I did. I mean, the first year I remember working super hard. My mum was always, academics were a big thing. My mum would have killed me if I'd have come home with anything less than, a B at least. If not an A. It was quite a lot of pressure. But I remember I did 2 A levels on top of, you do a music course. So I was working, in the night to do my English still. And then the second year, I was kind of like, I really do just want to do music. So I was skiving. We call it skiving in the UK, or skipping out. I do that quite a lot.
Yeah. So the did they get to the point where it was like, oh, you're sick again, you must have a gig?
Oh, they used to be. I was always ill because I used to work and then do a gig in the evening and then have to get up early for school, like 6 a.m. to get to school. And they were always kind of looking at me and being like, "Are your priorities right?" And I was always like, "Yeah, absolutely." Gigging.
So towards the end of school, you were sort of like, okay, what am I really doing here?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember, I think it was the January, it would be getting on for 2 years ago now, 1 year ago, 2 years. I was kind of asking my mum, it was 4 months till I broke up from school, and I was like, nothing is happening. I've not met anyone who can put me in any sort of position to be in front of more people. My mum was like, keep on. And then I remember that May, I managed to meet my management. They came across me via the blues bar I was playing in, and the rest is history. But that first break is the most terrifying because you feel like it's never going to happen.
So to help get that break, you went into a friend's bathroom and recorded 13 songs?
Yeah, if not more. I think it was about 18 songs. And then, I had that little demo, list on SoundCloud, as you do. And then it got sent around and gradually more people heard it who could help me out.
So, but you didn't want to sign to a label until your first EP was done.
Yeah.
Because you wanted it to just be yours.
Creative control is massively underestimated. I think, especially when you're young, you kind of go, I've got to, I know of a lot of artists who are like, I've got a record deal. There we go, job done. And it's like, you got to make the record, and the record's got to be you, and you have to live with it if it doesn't do well. And so that's why I'm saying to you about writing 100% my own record, because, I mean, if it doesn't change the world, it changes me and who I am. That's what's important.
Sure. It's kind of cool, though. You don't have a label deal, and you come over to the United States, go to Woodstock, partner up with Simon Felice of the Felice Brothers.
Yeah, he's a spiritual kind of guru a little bit. He's like, I grew so much. And there's an engineer, David Barron, who's also an absolute genius on everything I've ever done. And I work with them on everything I've ever done. But yeah, I was 18 and I had these songs. I had Something American, I had Cathedral and whatever's on that EP. And I was just kind of a bit terrified, but knew what I wanted. I remember being like, no electronic drums. Don't put any electronic drums on my records. So we tracked it all with a guy called Matt Johnson who played for Jeff Buckley on the drums. So it was an amazing experience, game-changing, life-changing.
So after that's done, that allows you to hook up with Glassnode, and they have, small little bands like Mumford & Sons.
Yeah, Daniel Glass. I remember meeting him for the first time in New York, and I think he wasn't necessarily sure I was going to be able to work hard enough because I was quite shy, back then, and I was a bit the same. I was like, "Who's this big record guy?" And then we met the second time. I remember meeting his family, and we just hit it off massively, And since then, he's been my biggest mentor, and he's a bit of an inspiration for me. It's kind of great when you can be with a label that's, inspiring instead of, crushing your dreams.
Yeah. My sense is that you've got the record almost done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got these 6 and then it'll be done.
All right.
So 6. So I guess that's halfway there. There'll be 13, 14 songs on the record. So
Well, we're really anxious to hear it. You're already looking ahead to the next record. You'd like Jack White to produce that.
I know. I think I would. He's just doing something different. I saw him and Tom Waits. He popped backstage. Tom Waits did and was like, congratulations on pursuing kind of real music. And I just think he's onto something. Always has been something pioneering good music. So I'd love to collaborate with him at some point.
I think one of the things that's really exciting about the record that we don't have yet is that by all accounts, you're really stretching yourself. And you're really sort of making sure that you're crossing as many boundaries as you possibly can. And I thought that the interesting thing was that you've said that you're doing that just to set yourself up for the future.
Absolutely, yeah. The people I admire the most have been like shapeshifters in music. And what you admire, you want to be. And I feel like crossing boundaries is something that I want to do in my career. I never feel like a dream is too big or a sound is too big for me. I kind of get in there, get stuck in. Because the more you do on the first album, the more you'll do on the second. So I said that's my theory anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Jade Bird is in our studio. We'd love to have one more song if we could.
All right, this is a bit of a rocker. It's called Uh-huh. First you wake up, put on makeup in the bathroom, and go to work and stay real late and text you she'll be back soon. But the boss runs his fingers around her pretty blonde platinum dude. I bet you never thought about that, did you? And it's none of my business, and I don't want to get involved if you're thinking that she's good. I think you should be tough. She got you in your knees like a little bug. Everybody sees that you're just a little tough. She's got a box full, but it ain't any but she asks you if you love her and you want to say, Does she wear short skirts so you don't ask her if you can check her phone? Talk about the guys at work so you feel egocentric, like fancy cars and football teams and she like continental. With a European accent does she speak? Oh, so gentle, and it's none of my business, and I don't wanna get involved if you're thinking that she's good. God no, she got you in your knees like a little bug. Everybody sees that you're just a little bug. She's got a box full, but it ain't like God. She asks you if you love her and you wanna say, she got you hurt up, you don't see the sea. The way she said at work, she's doing what you did to me. She got you hurt up, you don't see the sea. The way she said at work, she's doing what you did to me. She got you on your knees like a little bug. Everybody sees that you're just a little bug. She's got a box full, but it ain't any bug. She asks you if you love her and you wanna say, she asks you if you love her and you wanna say, she asks you if you love her and you wanna say,
That seemed like fun.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Jade Bird is in our studio. This is where I tell you that you can still go out and get the Something American EP, but we're all waiting with bated breath. I assume and Lottery are going to be on the new one.
Of course, yeah. None of the Something American EP. I've kind of written that away, but yeah, them two are the start of this phase.
So no crossover. Go get the Something American. You won't be duplicating.
I know, it's true. You've got to constantly move. It's like what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Into new things.
All right. Jade Bird, it's been such a blessing to have you in the studio today. We had so much fun.
Me too.
And I hope you'll come back again soon.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Jade Bird live on the bridge.